The issue that we would like to explore is, what is it that can really help to flip us into that change? And I think for those of you who were here yesterday and listened to Johan Rockström talked about planetary boundaries, he used a phrase, bending the curve. How can we bend the curve of climate change? So what I'd like to do today is to stimulate a conversation with all of these friends and use their work in the artistic, sports, even business field and education field to see what it is that can help. So I'd like to start off with Robert Swan and Sophie Tang. Robert Swan, I think many of you know him. He's been in Hong Kong before. And he is the first person to walk to the North Pole and the South Pole, not on the same trip. And his life's work is to, of course, protect the polar region, particularly Antarctica. And he has taken, I think, many groups of people to the South Pole now. And in Hong Kong, we're very fortunate, Robert, you have been able to take some Hong Kong people on those trips. And Sophie Tang is one of the very lucky young people who went on that trip. So, I mean, Robert, you've worked so hard to do all this. I'd like you to share with us, what difference has it made? How do you think it has changed people's mindset and behavior? And then, Sophie, you can tell us, what did it do for you? And one thing that I do know is, since coming back from her trip, she's been working tirelessly in public education, particularly with young children. But Robert first.
Well, thank you very much. I just was really inspired, David, by your presentation. Thank you very much. I think what we've learnt going to the South and North Poles is that this has been going on for some time. All the issues that people are describing here, you know, 20 years ago when we walked to the North Pole, we nearly drowned because the ice then was already melting. So this is not something that happened 5 minutes ago. It's something that has been going on for some period of time. And I think to encapsulate our feelings, and again, I was really impressed by what David had to say there, is that what we need to do, and many of us are grown-ups here, we may not feel it, but we are, is that we have to translate these messages to young people in their language, which actually isn't our language. You know, it's down to Twitter, Facebook, MySpace, all those media that young people are engaged with. We can't keep speaking our language. We have to translate that language. And I think what we found with some wonderful young people that have come with us, and I think in the audience here there's Roy from Beijing who's been with us, and Kira from Hong Kong, I think you're here, Kira, and Sophie, of course, as well, is what we've realized is that young people today, I'm really sounding old when I say that, but young people today actually do not require any longer information. They can get it. What they actually require is inspiration. And we need to translate that inspiration into their words, not ours, because otherwise we'll miss a whole generation of people. So what we've seen at both poles is actually, it's not all negative, it's hopeful. When you see what David's doing, what many scientists are doing, there's hope. And these two places on Earth are warning us. People talk about global warming. Well, those places are global warning because they are changing, they are melting, and we know it. And I think that it's all really down to hope, because no one is inspired by negative. We've got to move into the hope area. So that's really what we've tried to do, and it's an honor to be here. Sophie, maybe you'd like to add to that.
Thanks, Robert. So after the first time I heard Robert speak, I just knew that I was going to Antarctica with him. I can't explain it. And luckily for me, Coca-Cola made this happen. So we went to Antarctica and we saw for ourselves what was happening there. And as an environmental science student, it was very interesting for me because for once I could see the success of a model, especially from a conservation point of view, that has worked for 50 years. And this really gave me a lot of hope because, you know, I can look at conferences and meetings in a different light ever since I came back from Antarctica because something has worked, and I'm talking about the Antarctic Treaty. So I go to these talks that I give at schools, and I tell them about Rob's story, I tell them about my personal experience, but also really to just be there to give them direct answers with very practical solutions of what they can do right now, and not focus on what's wrong, but really to give them hope and to answer their questions, because it's all this science that we've been talking today, yesterday as well. It's not easy for a kid or young student to really understand everything.
Well, thank you. I just want to say that Robert is actually with us in Hong Kong for the rest of this week, and that on Sunday, some of you heard yesterday when we opened the conference, that we have the end of a climate change competition called Get It Green. Robert will be making his major speech there to young people. If I may say, you prefer talking to young people than to us older people. Because you're getting more bang for your bucks, right? That's what you're really saying. And that he would be giving his major speech. If any of you are interested in coming, let us know. We'll be happy to include them. Now, the other person I'd like to introduce is really a new friend, Dr. Rajat Chauhan. I read in an Indian website, maybe, 2 months ago, they talked about an ultra runner called Rajat Chauhan, and I thought, okay, what's an ultra runner? Well, it's somebody who runs under impossible conditions, and that he had a project called the High Run, which takes elite runners from various places in the world up the Himalayas. So I thought, I must look for this person. I must look for him to see if he will come to Hong Kong and join us. So the question that I have for Rajat is, what's the idea of the High Run? And so what that you've all ran up the mountain? How does that change anything?